Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's time to talk about some X-Wing by Fantasy Flight Games again. This one's more of a hypothetical episode. I don't know if FFG will release news right away, 2 weeks in a row, especially after such a long dearth of news, but maybe that means they will. Who knows? So, let's instead do a little bit of theory crafting and talk about the new reload action. Because I have some thoughts on this action and how it can be applied mostly in other ways. We've seen this with just about every other action that is in the game, that there's some way to apply it to additional ships besides just those that come with it on their action bar. Even the most limited of actions have come in even temporary forms, Burnout Slam, for instance, and also Cloaking Device, both of which are illicits. This obviously controls what ships get them, but still allows them to be got, if only once. There's also even opportunities for, say, Evade. The Millennium Falcon title adds the Evade action, for instance. More importantly, there are various ways to get the Evade tokens which the action provides, which can be seen as basically replacing the action through external sources. Similar with Focus tokens, though obviously, to this date, there are no ships that do not have the Focus action. The only real exceptions to this are actions which are somewhat limited to your cardboard, like the arc changing action, and even the reinforce action is tied to firing arcs and so printed on the actual card, or cardboard I should say, so those are less likely to spring up as additions. But even Coordinate, recently added to standard play, theoretically, or technically I should say, is added by the new Phantom 2 title. You can put the ability to do a Coordinate action for free even, not even as part of a regular action, on another ship now. And I expect that there will be further adjustments in that range. For instance, it would be great if U-Wings or Lambdas could coordinate. Food for thought there. So let's talk about the reload action. For the sake of brevity, as much as I'd love to make some mock-ups, as far as I know, Strange Eons hasn't updated to allow the reload action icon to be printed on anything, so for the sake of just keeping everything clean, we're just going to list them off. In the background image will be the reload action reference card, but to review. Ships with the reload icon in their action bar may perform a reload action. To reload, choose any number of the ship's equipped, discarded, torpedo or missile upgrade cards and flip them face up. Then assign the ship a weapons disable token. A ship with a weapons disable token assigned to it cannot perform attacks. All weapons disable tokens are removed during the end phase. Unless you're a gunboat, which can still fire when they have weapons disabled. But anyway, that's a thought for a different time. So right now, there's going to be two ships coming out in Wave 12. The Assault Gunboat and the Kimogilla fighter, which will include the reload action. Reload, I think, is supposed to be kind of an alternative to extra munitions and even the new ordnance tubes upgrade that'll come with the Resistance bomber, which is designed to basically build short, sweet alpha strikes. It lets you maximize your point value for a single munition, basically. Use it once, twice, get your point value out of it. It's gone, whatever, you move on. So you're not necessarily in for the long haul, you're just in to make sure that you can hopefully get your value out of that attack if it doesn't work in the first way. I think reload action is a callback to a different style. It's meant for a long play. It's kind of a, you fire, you goof off somewhere else for a little bit by yourself, and then you reload and you come back around, and that kind of can extend your ability to use missiles and torpedoes. I think it's very telling that it doesn't include bombs in this case. So if you want to use multiple bombs, you either have to be a resistance bomber, or you have to take extra munitions, which is good. Or you take bomblet and you have unlimited bombs, which is, another thing that's going on. Sorry, I leaned into the microphone a little there. I apologize if I was loud for a second. So let's think about how we can apply the reload action to other ships besides the two it's going to come with. The obvious answer is a modification. That's how most actions that are pretty standard get added. Targeting computer, engine upgrade, vectored thrusters, of course, and so on. So you could easily have something like an autoloader or an expanded storage or something modification, which could read simply, you gain the reload action in your action bar. It's pretty dirt simple. That's probably worth like 2 points. That's the exact same cost extra munitions has. It fulfills a similar purpose. The big deal here is that this can be both balancing or not balancing, depending on what you're doing. If reload is really good, which I'm not sure it is, but if it is really good, like if you can do broken-ass things with it, it might be good to make this a modification, because then you can't take guidance chips, which is very important to most ordnance builds. It just makes them that much more reliable compared to primary attacks than not, especially for their point cost and their dice amounts, and often their restrictions. So, chips is really useful, right? It's really good. It's one of the things that is actually, honest to God, turned around ordnance in this game. For good or ill. You can have your own thoughts on that. I know a lot of people think that it's not all about missiles and stuff, but there's definitely a fair bit of torpedo usage and some of the things I've read that have X-Wing in big letters on the title. But that's a discussion for a different time. So, if reload could be broken, it would be good that it can't be used with chips. But if reload is just an averagey kind of action, it's nice to have, and it could be useful for some builds, but it's not make or break anything, then cutting out chips, especially when it only works with the 2 upgrade types that chips works with, that's going to be rough. This is much like the dilemma I think the assault gunboat has and is supposed to have between stuff like long-range scanners, advanced slam, and chips. Though obviously you can kit out a gunboat to also fire cannons, in which case you don't need to worry about chips. So, like a theoretical autoloader, that's good. That's pretty simple. FFG does sometimes like simple solutions, but that might be too simple overall. It might hurt more than it helps, especially since I know some people are dubious about how useful reload will actually be, since it takes an action and it kind of slows down your cycle of attacking a little, unless, of course, because it's like autoloader, it could be stuff like after you perform a reload action, you get a free target lock or something. You could do some stuff with it a little, play around with it to make it more useful. But in that case, I think there might be better solutions. Personally, I think what would be most interesting is something like a Loadmaster or a munitions tech or some kind of whatever title you want to use to make a crew card which handles reload actions. Possibly even gives them to you in certain situations. Like, after you do a green maneuver, you can perform a reload action for free. Like how BB-8 lets you barrel roll on a green, stuff like that. That I think could be useful. Obviously, Imperial players will be upset because they don't have ships that have crew and also can use munitions and things, except maybe the Scum Fire Spray, which probably needs a lot more help than being able to reload. Especially since you can't, say, reload and use Andrastia. So there's that. The other thing to think about this, though, is that it would help some ships, but it would probably help them in a costly way. Unless it had, a built-in trigger, just adding the action bar and being a crew slot, that's probably not worth more than, 1 point. Maybe 2 points, depending on what all you think it can go with. That could be annoying with some scum ships, though. Given that Advanced Slam changed out to be okay, hopefully the Jumpmaster changes are something like what they've said they will be, and finally the Jumpmaster will maybe be properly coordinated with the whatnot. But it's still got a crew slot. But on the other hand, crew slots are a high premium. Usually when you have crew slots, there's a lot of good things to put there. So just putting them to add an action could be dubious. You might not want to do that. That might be too niche, for instance, as much as I think it would be cool. For actual high-level play, it could simply just not be worth it. You just suck it up. Oh, it's the same cost as extra munitions or cheaper. Just, find a ship that does extra munitions. And like I said, Imperial players will be up in arms if, for some reason, their bombers and Punishers can't reload and the dirty Rebel Scum cam. But I honestly, I think that's kind of a little too close to the fluff angle over the mechanics angle, because let's not get into how many torpedoes ships are supposed to hold. Like, for instance, Y-Wings are supposed to hold 12 proton torpedoes, basically 6 shots because it's a linked system. Yeah, there's 2 torpedo launchers on both X-Wings and Y-Wings, and yet they have different numbers of torpedo slots. So yeah, that's a real deep discussion that I think kind of just cuts too deep into the matter. It's like asking, like, how many shots does it actually take for a TIE fighter to blow up a X-Wing? It's like 6, but they do it all at once. It's kind of oddball sometimes to look too closely at things on screen or in fiction compared to how they play on the table. There has to be a certain level of abstraction. To that end, obviously, speaking of Rebel scum, the thing you could do is you could make a reloading Astromech. That would not necessarily benefit many ships, and I think on the Rebel side it would cut out some options. You couldn't get reloading A-Wings for multiple sets of prockets, or reloading B-Wings, for multiple torpedoes. That could be funny with somebody like Nera Dantels, who could do 360 torpedoes. So if you could reload with her and just get unlimited torpedoes, much like people are thinking of dumb combinations with saturated salvo and munitions failsafe, and accuracy corrector, of course, to whiff every torpedo shot and keep them, so you just do splash damage all the time. It's really dumb, but it's funny dumb. So reloading Astromech obviously would help X-Wings, it would help Arcs, it would help Y-Wings, ships that have torpedo options but don't really get to use them a lot. And if it was an Astromech, it would still leave, obviously, chips open. You might even, if it cost relatively low, like if it cost 1 point for just an action, or maybe 2 points, and it was, like I said, it was like a BB-8, where do a green, get a free reload action, that sort of thing. You could probably make something work with torpedo-based Y-Wings or X-Wings. And obviously, you never know, there may be more ships coming out. It'd be useless to the Sheathipede, because that has an Astromech slot but no munitions slot of any kind. Unless, there's a version of a type of card like Sabine that comes out that gives you torpedoes. Presumably, Mandalorians hanging out of the side of your boat with missile launchers. It could happen. Don't look at me like that. So that's a zone I think could be interesting. And obviously, I talked about how Imperial players are going to whinge about not having reload, even though there's one of the ships that gets it, and right now Rebels don't have any reload at all. Honestly, I do think there needs to be an Aces pack. It needs to have TIE Punishers as one of the Imperial ships in there, and they need to give it the TIE IT or TIE Interdictor title. One of the things it should do is give you a reload action. Hopefully, also, it should give you action economy. Like, when you perform a reload action, you can also perform another free action on your action bar, like Advanced Slam, but with reload. You get me? So that you can, say, reload and then into a boost, or reload and then into a target lock or something to prep to fire those munitions. That's something it really needs. And it also really needs, in general, EPT. Don't know if there'll be a way to do that. That might be a separate thing, you never know. The other thing, I think that if you built a TIE Interdictor title, basically, the Interdictor has a lot of slots, right? That's really good. That lets you variety, but you don't usually use all the slots at once. Minefield Mapper helps you get most out of your bombs before you even launch, And you can still, because you can fit extra munitions on there, you can still fit in the ability to keep bombs for in-play later. So that's useful. But the other aspects, I think, are just that the Punisher is not a good heavy bomber because it does not have high-level repositioning like Skurgs and K-Wings do. If you could do something with boosts, that might help, but that's not enough. A boost is not a slam, and a boost is not barrel rolls with advanced sensors, I guess you could work to boost with advanced sensors, but it's just not the same field of repositioning, right? You can only do 3 actions forward. If maybe you could do more, like you could say boost with 1s or 2s, or you could add boosting with turns in there, that could be a thing. But in general, yeah, I think the Punisher needs to be rounded out with the ability to reload to basically get even more maximization out of its options if you build them for missiles or for torpedoes or for, well, not bombs, because that doesn't work. In that case, you'd do something else. But for if you wanted to build a missile or torpedo-focused Punisher, you could definitely do that, where you just plug and reload and it can get some actions. And then it needs some way to actually get those actions. And it could really use an EPT, and it could really use more pilots. But that's an entirely different thing that I hope FFG is thinking about, because that's one of those ships that have been a dud forever. They've only just fixed the Kirax and the Star Viper in a double pack. That was probably pretty easy. I don't really know what Imperials have that needs fixing from that era and before. Other than people saying interceptors are bad, I don't think interceptors are necessarily going to get an ace fix anytime soon, because they already did an ace box and it came with 2 friggin' TIE interceptors. I think that was something where FFG shot themselves in the foot a little. You might have to wait for the dev cycle a little bit longer on that. I'm sorry. Especially since, in the grand scheme of X-Wing, Sunterfell has only really just kind of been phased out in like the last, I would say, 12 months now. Maybe a little longer, to like 15 months. But it's only just under a year, so theoretically the idea that, oh gee, well, nobody's playing interceptors at all anymore, like, at all, that's only just now crossing into FFG's zone of development, right? Like, theoretically, products that they first thought of, which could be getting ready to roll out to development now, would be in that zone. So you're gonna wait a little while. It's gonna be after this wave, at minimum. But that's a different topic again. Who needs what ace packs? I could do that video. Speaking of which, since we're at our end of our reloading discussion here, that's most of the ideas that I have. Especially since I think another pilot with the reload ability would be not good, because there's already that one Seek pilot who is just reload without the actual action, which, by the way, makes them technically better than reloading, so reloading did not obsolete that pilot. But we're at the end of our discussion here. We're coming at around 20 minutes. This video is a little longer than I thought it would be, but, I like to ramble, and I've got some good ideas here. And mostly, I want to open up discussion points. So, if you have any comments about any of this, you have any ideas for places a reload could be, if you want me to do that sort of video about talking about who needs an aces pack, what are our top level ships that need fixes and don't just need that one upgrade to come along, Like, theoretically, I've heard people say that if you get it out of your head that X-Wings are bad, you can play regular X-Wings, like the classic X-Wing, fairly well, but not quite well enough, so they could just be one X-Wing compatible upgrade away from being good. But leave those in the comments below if you've got them. As always, if you like this video, give it a like, and if you are new to my channel and you want to see more, please subscribe. I emphasize this, especially this time, because I'm probably going to release a follow-up video soon talking about new and interesting things you can do with the jam tokens.